From the moment Ellie turned 6, she knew that her doll wasn't just a toy. It was her reflection, her twin, her secret stage partner. The doll had long auburn yarn hair braided with tiny pink ribbons, sea glass eyes that shimmered in the light, and a perfect smile stitched with delicate red thread. Ellie named the doll after herself, because in her eyes they were one and the same. Ellie wasn't just a child with a doll, she was a creator. She hand-stitched matching costumes from her mother's leftover fabric, threading stars into skirts and gluing rhinestones onto tiny shoes. Every afternoon, after school, she would rehearse dance routines for the school's cheer auditions, choreographing both her steps and the doll's. She taped the doll's feet to a mini rotating platform she'd built from cardboard and rubber bands, making it spin in perfect pirouettes. It was magical, at least to her. Not far behind Ellie in age or ambition was Madison, the neighbor girl who always hovered nearby but never quite committed. She had once tried out dance too, but gave up when her routine wasn't perfect on the second try. She hated sweat, hated following steps, hated waiting for progress. Madison was sharp, sarcastic, and always watching, especially when Ellie performed. "You really think a doll's gonna win you the spot on the squad?" Madison sneered one afternoon, lounging on the schoolyard bench with a juice box in hand. Ellie didn't answer. She just kept dancing. The grass of the school's side lawn glistened under the early fall sun. Trees shivered nearby, and the faded picnic table under the oak became her stage. As her arms twirled and her feet tapped, the doll's limbs swung in perfect harmony on the small tripod stand beside her. She called this routine Ellie and the Mirror. The doll, of course, was the mirror. Madison rolled her eyes, but watched the whole time, her lips pressed into a thin line. Something bitter had begun to brew behind her expression. The next week, cheer auditions were announced for Friday after school. Ellie was ready. Madison, surprisingly, signed up too. "I've got something to show them," Madison said with a strange glint in her eye. That Friday, the two girls met at the edge of the schoolyard for one final rehearsal. The leaves rustled overhead as they laid out their cheer mats. Ellie placed her doll, freshly dressed in a glittering blue outfit, on a foldable table nearby. "Ready?" Ellie asked. "Sure," Madison replied flatly. "Let me go first." Her routine was messy, full of skipped steps and stiff limbs, but she powered through with forced smiles. When she landed her final pose, she looked straight at Ellie. "Your turn," she said. "With the doll, I guess." Ellie nodded, adjusting her ponytail and stepping onto the grass. The moment the music played from her phone, something electric sparked in the air. She moved with grace. Every turn matched, every arm in sync with the tiny doll spinning beside her. Even the wind seemed to dance with her. But Madison didn't clap. She didn't speak. Instead, after the music ended, she said, "Let me see your doll." Ellie hesitated. "Why?" "Just let me hold it. I want to try something." Reluctantly, Ellie handed over the doll. Madison turned it in her hands, inspecting the stitching, the hair, the ribboned ankles. Then she smiled, a strange, crooked smile. Without warning, Madison grabbed the doll by the arm and yanked. A seam popped, then tore with a muffled rip. "Oops," she said. Ellie's eyes widened. "Why'd you do that?" But Madison just tossed the doll onto the ground and walked off. "Let's see how you dance now." Ellie dropped to her knees, cradling the torn doll. The arm dangled by a thread. She tried to reattach it with a safety pin from her backpack, but her hands trembled too hard. That night, her wrist began to ache. At first, she thought it was a sprain from practice, but the pain grew worse, sharp and pulsing, like a deep bruise blooming under the skin. By morning, her wrist was swollen and hot. Her mother took one look and rushed her to urgent care. "I don't remember hurting it," Ellie whispered to the nurse. The doctor examined it, his face tightening. "Possible infection. This might need surgery." The swelling didn't stop. The skin began to bruise in spiraling patterns. The doctors couldn't explain it. By the end of the week, they mentioned the word Ellie had only ever heard in stories: amputation. Her mother cried. Ellie didn't. She stared at the torn doll lying on the chair beside her hospital bed. Its tiny hand was missing. Her own throbbed in rhythm. On the schoolyard lawn, Madison stood alone the next afternoon, watching the breeze flicker through the trees. She kicked at the grass where Ellie once danced. Her phone buzzed with cheer squad results. Ellie's name was at the top. Hers wasn't even listed. From the corner of her eye, she saw something shift behind the trees. A flutter of fabric. A flash of yarn hair. She turned, but nothing was there. Yet. The hospital room was quiet. Too quiet for a girl who used to fill parks with laughter and music. Ellie sat on the edge of her bed, one arm wrapped in white gauze, the other clutching her doll, now missing its left hand. The doctors had tried everything: ice, antibiotics, exploratory surgery. But the infection had spread fast, weaving through her nerves like wildfire. There was no logical explanation, only escalating symptoms. And so, with solemn words and hesitant eyes, the decision was made. Her left hand was gone. The same hand her doll had lost. She hadn't told anyone that part. Not her mom, not the nurses, not even the therapist with the soft voice and clipboard who kept saying the word grief. But Ellie knew. She knew exactly when it started. When Madison tore the arm off her doll. Madison hadn't slept well in days. It wasn't just guilt, it was something else, something watching her. At night, when the street light flickered outside her bedroom window, she sometimes saw a shadow that didn't belong, a shape too small to be a person, too deliberate to be imagined. One evening she found muddy footprints on her windowsill, tiny ones. She told herself it was an animal, a raccoon maybe, but the fear didn't leave. And then came the voices. At first they were soft, whispers in the hallway, then louder, in her closet, behind the bathroom mirror. They always said the same thing: cheerleaders don't tear. And then they laughed, a giggle, high and childlike, a mimicry of Ellie's laugh, twisted. She stopped going to school after the 5th night. She told her parents she had the flu. They didn't question her, but she heard them whisper about her, about how she was acting strange and not like herself. They were right. She wasn't. It all came to a head on a rainy Thursday. Madison couldn't take it anymore. She had to see Ellie, had to apologize, had to return the hand she'd ripped off the doll. Yes, she'd kept it. In the back pocket of her jeans that day. Why, she didn't know. Maybe a trophy. maybe a curse. The walk to Ellie's house was only 10 minutes, but the downpour turned it into a storm march. Thunder rolled like drums, lightning laced the sky, trees leaned closer with every gust of wind, like trying to hear her thoughts. When she arrived, soaked and shivering, she saw the window of Ellie's room was cracked open. "Ellie?" she called out. No answer. She climbed over the fence, shoes sinking into mud. The grass seemed to grab at her ankles. She hoisted herself onto the ledge and peeked inside. Ellie sat on the floor, back turned, her doll perched on the windowsill facing Madison. Eyes wide, lips curled into that stitched smile. "Ellie," Madison whispered. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. The doll, I mean." Still silence. "I brought it." Madison pulled the tiny hand from her pocket. It was filthy now, the threads fraying, fabric stiff like it had absorbed something dark. Ellie didn't move. Madison reached forward and placed the doll's hand on the windowsill. "Please. I just want things to go back to normal." The wind howled through the trees. The doll toppled forward into her palm. Madison gasped, catching it reflexively. Something stabbed her hand, a sharp pain like a needle of fire. She dropped the doll. Blood beaded on her palm. Inside, Ellie slowly turned. Her eyes were distant, hollow. "You shouldn't have taken what wasn't yours," Ellie said softly. "I know," Madison whispered, backing away. "I didn't mean." "You broke her hand!" I said I was sorry. "You broke my hand!" Madison froze. The doll's body twitched on the sill, then moved. By itself, it turned its head toward her. Madison screamed. The next morning, police tape surrounded Ellie's yard. Her window was shattered. Officers murmured about a possible break-in, maybe a wild animal. No sign of forced entry, no blood, except for a tiny handprint on the inside of the window, too small to be Madison's. They found Madison 2 days later unconscious in the woods behind the school, in the same grove where the girls used to rehearse. She was curled in a fetal position, whispering the same words over and over. "She took my hand. She took my hand. She took my hand." But her hands were intact, at least physically. Psychiatrists were baffled. She wouldn't speak after that, wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep without screaming. She was moved to a long-term psychiatric facility upstate. Ellie never visited. But she did keep dancing, one-handed now, but graceful as ever. And the doll? It sat beside her at every routine, restitched, complete, and smiling, always smiling.